The Girl King is directed by Mika Kaurismäki, written by Michel-Marc Bouchard, and stars Malin Buska, Sarah Gadon, and Mikael Nyqvist. And The Girl King is about Queen Christina of Sweden, who ruled in the 17th century and was somewhat notorious for being a very reluctant ruler and for spending a ton of money on books, art, and other things that her advisors felt were not really necessary for her people in that time. But more importantly, the movie also highlights her sort of taboo relationship with one of her ladies-in-waiting, Countess Ebba Sparre. Now, this is one of those movies that I'm not really sure why I decided to watch it. Maybe it's because I knew I was watching TMNT 2 on the same day, and I knew I probably wasn't gonna like that movie, so I don't know, I guess decided to take a chance. Also because I watched the trailer and the subject matter itself really interested me. And this movie turned out to be quite the surprise. It has some really bad editing, but like I said, the subject matter is really very interesting, and it has a powerhouse performance from Malin Buska. First of all, let's get this out of the way. Let's actually start with the negatives first, because I know that if there's anyone out there who's watching this who decides to watch The Girl King after this review, you're probably gonna be annoyed by the editing here, because the editing, in my opinion at least, by Hans Funk is really atrocious. Like, it's crazy how disjointed this movie comes across. It really reminded me of that movie that came out 2 years ago, I believe, called Son of God, which is actually pretty much a re-edited version of the last few episodes, I believe, of that old TV mini-series called The Bible. And it really didn't work for that movie, and it still doesn't work here. It feels like a highlight reel of, moments from this non-existent TV mini-series. I've heard some people argue that it's, a conscious stylistic choice, this style of editing, but for me, watching it, it really doesn't come across as that. It just comes across as messy. And for me, editing is like kind of where I draw the line. Like, if you mess up your editing, like, there's no excuse, in my opinion. I mean, for me, the only movies that have ever gotten away with like really disjointed style of editing is like French New Wave stuff. Like, watch Breathless by Jean-Luc Godard. That's a really deep cut, I'm sorry. But this movie is not French New Wave, it's not Breathless. So yes, the editing does distract the storytelling, but if you manage to kind of sit through this movie and get over like the editing, and really just pay attention, there's actually a really interesting story here. The subject matter is very intriguing. It's rich with a lot of political stuff, but the politics in this movie is secondary to the character study of Queen Christina. This movie really focuses on just her, who she was as a person. And it's just so great to see like what her relationship was with politics, because at least the way this movie portrays her, she's very nonchalant about a lot of this stuff. She does as she pleases, and it's really cool to see how complex her relationships are with all the people in her life, because she doesn't have like a relationship with like one single person that stays like the same all throughout her life. It really depends on like the situation. Her relationship with her sort of adoptive father, played by Mikael Nyqvist, sometimes they just hate each other, sometimes you can tell they do love each other, like a kind of like a surrogate father and daughter. Even her relationship with Ebba Sparre isn't really made out to be just perfectly fine and dandy. Like, I believe that the way the relationship is portrayed is meant to show that Queen Christina really is just kind of confused about different aspects of herself, and she's really just trying to fit in this world. And that's ultimately what I really liked about the story in The Girl King, is that it really focuses on Christina and how she feels like she doesn't necessarily fit in, even in Sweden, even among her countrymen, because they're not really into the things she's into. She loves, Rene Descartes, philosophy and art and stuff like that, and other people don't see that. And there is a lot of great dialogue in this movie. There's some heavy-handed dialogue, but there's other great parts, like this one conversation she has, this argument she has with her mother, and it's just fantastic. And I know that people who see this might also complain that there's a lack of production value in the production design, and makes it feel like more like a TV movie, and I completely understand that. But the thing is, it didn't really bother me in this movie, because in low production value in the production design only really bothers me when the movie is clearly trying to seem bigger and grander than it has the budget for. But because The Girl King keeps its objectives a lot smaller, it works for me. And even if you might think the production design is a bit shoddy, the costume design in this movie really is amazing, especially Christina's like somewhat androgynous outfits. They really reflect her character, and they reflect her defiance to expectations of what a queen should be, and they just really look good. Mika Kaurismäki's direction also feels a bit more suited for television, although that's not necessarily like 100% a bad thing, especially with how TV's been on the rise lately. But it's also credit to him that he knows exactly what this movie is, and he never tries to reach for things that are beyond his grasp. He manages to keep the tone of this movie pretty light, all things considered. It never gets like super depressing, and there are funny moments throughout. But I really have to talk about the acting here. Like, I'm saving the best for last. The acting here really is great. Sarah Gaydon and Mikael Nyqvist, they're really good in the roles. They don't necessarily have so much to do, but like you can tell that they are professional actors. But speaking of professional actors who I've never heard of before, Malin Buska is the reason to watch this movie because she is amazing. Like, her performance is so well-rounded and fully formed, and you believe that she is this character. She is all at once fierce and fearless, but at the same time she's very vulnerable and helpless, but it doesn't come across that, she's being fierce just to mask her vulnerability. It's really, it feels like she's very confused about her place in the world, and watching her performance is watching a woman at war with herself, and it's such a great achievement, and I believe she deserves to be in a lot more stuff, a lot, bigger stuff than this. So with that said, I'm actually gonna say that The Girl King is a really good movie. I mean, I'm probably gonna see it again down the road, and I don't know if it's gonna hold up, but as of right now, I think it's really good. And if you do decide to watch this and you're put off by the editing and whatnot, just focus on Malin Buska. She's gonna bring you home. Alright, so those are my thoughts on The Girl King. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.